I think this is my actually first time speaking at FintechTO. So I've spoken at TechTO, but it's great to be here as a fintech at FintechTO. And Jackson basically did like my first 3 slides. So I think I can go through those, but I will be talking about how scaling is like surfing. But first, I'll quickly go through Borrowell. Our mission is to help people make great decisions about credit. And we think we're one of the largest fintech companies in Canada, at least by the measure of how many users we have. We've served over 1 million people, their credit scores. Raise your hand if you are a member with Borrowell. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, wow, you're my peeps. So we do think that statistically about 4% of the adult Canadian population is a Borrowell user, and it looks like we're overrepresented here, so that's great. We're the first company to give credit scores out for free, but we are much more than just a place where you can get your credit score and report. We have Molly, our credit coach, who gives really personalized tips on how to improve your credit score. And we also have an AI-powered recommendation engine that will help you optimize your portfolio of credit products. I think beyond this, we really do want to go beyond just, again, a credit score and helping you manage your credit. Our goal is that we would be helping people really achieve their goals of financial stability and wellness so that people have real peace of mind around their daily financial decisions, and they know that they're on track towards financial stability or just feeling really confident and peaceful about their financial lives. So that's a little bit about Borrowell. And I wouldn't be a co-founder if I didn't tell you to download our app. If you are a user and you haven't downloaded it, please join us on the journey. And if you're not a member, please download it and check it out. We'd love to get feedback. So how scaling is like surfing. So as was mentioned, I am a wannabe surfer. I surfed, I think, for the first time maybe 14 or 15 years ago. And then this last summer got back on a surfboard after about 10 years. So that's why I was inspired to talk about how scaling a company is like surfing. So, okay, I'll go through 5 ways that I think scaling is like surfing. Number 1, you have to get in the water. What does a 40-something mother of 2 have to do with surfing? I think the same thing could be said around, like, what business did I have joining the co-founding team of a fintech startup? I didn't have any background in technology, in startups, or in financial services. But I think you'll never know if you don't try. And you can't surf if you don't get in the water, and you can't scale a company if you don't start one. So while this looks like fun, this isn't surfing. This is just me on a paddleboard on a beach. And you may be in the situation where you're talking through and dreaming about different startup ideas, but not actually doing it. I'd encourage you to get in the water. That's the first step. Secondly, it is a lot of unseen hard work. So I think about what I've spent time on in the last month. It's things like business planning, budgeting, offsite planning, interviewing, putting together a time off policy, having a bunch of hard conversations, a ton of self-doubt about whether you're doing the right thing or not doing the right thing, doing the wrong thing, being wrong, apologizing for being wrong. There's just a bunch of things that you set goals, you don't meet them. There's a partnership opportunity that you're super excited about. It doesn't happen. It happens. It doesn't have the results that you both hoped. So I do think that there's a ton of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And the same way with surfing, you don't usually see the pictures of people paddling out in order to catch the wave. But this is a ton of hard work. You're paddling out there, the waves are coming in, they're crashing, you're drinking a lot of salt water, and I think that's one way that surfing is like scaling, lots of unseen hard work. I think the third thing is that you have to pick the right wave. And the analogy for this is whether it's the market, whether it's a user segment, whether it's the opportunity, it's pretty important to pick the right one. And you're not going to pick the right one every single time. So I think the learning for that is when you realize you're not on the right one, it's a good idea just to start over, to get off the surfboard, surf back out, and pick another wave. And I do think this is pretty important. It's one of those things that, again, you're never going to pick the right thing 100% of the time. So you have to sort of know when to fish or cut bait. And if something's down in the water, to just try something else. So arguably, I should have picked the wave behind me, not the one that I'm I'm on. That's definitely a much bigger wave. Arguably because maybe it wouldn't have been wise if I actually picked that wave. So number 4, there are moments of glory. Look how happy I look surfing that wave. When you thanks. When you actually catch a wave, it's glorious. You know, everything else fades away. You're surfing that wave, and it does feel glorious. And I think the startup or scale-up equivalent of this is finding that product market fit. It's when you get that amazing customer testimonial, when you realize you've actually changed someone's life. The thing is, those moments are pretty fleeting, and they don't last that long. So I would encourage you, if you're part of a scaling company or a startup, take those emails. That's why we have customer quotes in our office. You need to remind yourselves of those moments, and when things go dark and when things are not going the way you want them to, I think it's a good reminder. Why are you doing this? It's because of changing lives and for those elusive moments of glory. So 5th, it is definitely more fun when others are along for the ride. So any surfers? Jackson, I think you said you surf. Oh, this is awesome. Does anyone know what it's called when more than one person catches the same wave? It's called a party wave. And so this is me and my son this summer catching the same wave. So it was a pretty cool moment. And I do think that with scaling, it's the same thing. Founders get a lot of the glory and I think a lot of the credit, but scaling really is a team sport. And I'm super thankful that I get to work with amazing, smart, humble, thoughtful people, many of whom are in the room. So if you're part of the Borrowell team, put your hand up. And yeah, if you've, thank you. Jason rightly pointed out that there are more Borrowell team members in the room today than we had in total the first time I spoke at TechTO, because I think we had a team of like 6 or 7. I think there's 8 of us here tonight. So if you are looking to join the team, we're looking for an automation dev, a product designer, a full stack dev, security dev. So there's like a bunch of people who are looking. Again, I wouldn't be a founder if I wasn't always recruiting. So if you are interested in joining our team, chat with me or one of our team members. So I've talked about 5 ways that scaling is like surfing, but I do want to end on one way that I think it's not. So I'm not a real surfer, I'm a wannabe surfer, and I don't know a ton about real surfing culture, but from the outside, it seems to me like a lot of surfing is about catching the biggest wave. What makes the news is if someone catches like the biggest wave ever. I think similarly with startups and scale-ups, what do people talk about? What do people ask? They ask, A, how much money you've raised, how many people are on your team, how big is your office? All these things that I actually think don't really matter. And so what I'm going to say here, I think, is sort of startup scale-up heresy. So if I get the hook and get pulled off, I'll understand why. So I actually don't think that the ultimate goal should be making yourself a lot of money. I don't think it's even about giving a great return to your investors. I don't think the ultimate goal should be going public, even though I totally dream of this moment. And I don't think it's about being a unicorn and getting that $1 billion valuation. I know, all this startup heresy. I think what the ultimate goal should be is helping a lot of people, solving a really big problem, ideally solving a really big problem for a lot of people. And I think if that is the goal, then all those other things will follow. The cover of Time magazine, the IPO party, the house by the beach where you can surf every single day. Thank you. So I think that's my encouragement to all of you as you're thinking about your companies, as you're thinking about starting a company, focus on the right thing. I think if you focus on helping a lot of people, solving a big problem, creating real value, all those other things will come. But I think too often in the community, we're thinking about the IPO, the growth, all that stuff. And I would just encourage all of us here in the community in Toronto and also beyond to focus on creating real value. So that's all I've got. Thanks very much. Oh, I'm taking questions.
Awesome. Who has a question?
Where was that surf spot? There was palm trees and there was hotels. Where was that?
So there were a few different surf photos. Some were Waikiki in Hawaii and some were in Trinidad. I lived in Trinidad for about a year. Yes.
All right, I'll ask a question. So I worked for a startup that will remain nameless that focused on a lot of those things you just mentioned, and that's when the culture sort of started suffering. So how do you stop yourself from getting caught up in we raised all this money and our industry's growing and we're getting all this recognition, and stay focused on, and being true to your values and the customer?
Yeah, I think it does take a real effort to remind ourselves. And I think one of the things that we've tried to do is to understand our customer more and understand the problems that they have and the problems to be solved. So one of the things that we try to do on a regular basis is bring in a customer to talk to our team, and we'll do a fireside chat kind of thing and just understand who they are and put ourselves in their shoes. And I think that helps bring it back to something that's real as opposed to something that feels theoretical. Yes.
Hi, Eva. Thanks for sharing some of these insights.
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of the key challenges that you've encountered while growing or scaling Borrowell?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure where to start. There's definitely been lots of challenges. I think I'll maybe mention two. One, I think, is the importance of building customer trust. And I think in the early days, that's really hard. It's a bit easier now that we've got a bit of scale. But I think I really underestimated, specifically for fintech, how important earning the trust of the customer is. Even if we're not asking them for money, we are still asking them for personal information. And so I think there are a number of things that were helpful for us in that. We found using more traditional media to be pretty helpful. So for whatever reason, if you spend $100,000 a week on Facebook, you may not be a real company, you're still a scam. But if you spend $500 on a radio ad, all of a sudden you're a real company, because you have to be a real company to be on the radio. So that was something that was helpful for us in building trust. I think the second thing is about priorities. I think it's always hard to turn down good things. And the problem is that there's more good things that you can do as a company than you could actually execute against. So I think for us, using a system like OKRs where we have specific goals was helpful for us in prioritizing what's really important. And then it's just as important to have a not to-do list as it is to do a to-do list. And that's an ongoing struggle, I think, for us, is what are the things that are most important to do that we want to really focus on.
Hi. What's been the most interesting thing you've learned dealing with the consumer credit space?
The most interesting thing, I don't know, I'm looking at my team. Is there anything? I think one of the most interesting things is how the assumptions that I have about people are just not right. And there's so many, I think, examples of unconscious bias where someone's doing something, it's it doesn't seem rational, but when you understand their thought process, it is rational in their mind. It may be rational to pay off a smaller loan that has a lower interest rate, so you feel like you're making progress, and you can continue to keep paying off debt, as opposed to what I think would make the most sense, which is paying off the higher interest loan first. So I think there's a lot of things that don't seem like they're rational from my point of view, but when you talk to a customer, it is. I think there's a lot of examples like that where things that don't seem to make sense to me, but I'm not necessarily the end user.
Hi, Eva.
Hello.
Can you share?
Are you interested in a role as an automation dev at Borrowell, by the way?
Yeah, an automation QA.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I wonder if there's a typical day of you as a COO or and a co-founder.
I think one of the great things is that there aren't really typical days, that every day is pretty different. But I would say the things that are similar would be like one-on-ones with my team. That I do end up being in a bunch of meetings. I don't know, it sounds really boring. I feel like that's most of my day. I'm looking at other people. It's just you used to spend most of your day in meetings, right? So no, I don't think there's a typical day, but I think that's what makes it fun and exciting, is that my priorities shift and what I'm responsible for changes, and I think what the organization needs is different. And so I think one of the things being at a scale up to continue to be successful is to continually reevaluate what are the most important things that the company needs and what are the most important things that I can be doing. Happy to chat more after. Okay, thanks.